The old, red brick townhouse on Elm Street had always held a certain mystique for Tommy Pickles. It was the tallest building in their quite suburban neighborhood, its windows like watchful eyes on the sleepy street. Today, though, the mystique was amplified by the sheer chaos unfolding. Boxes, a symphony of cardboard and packing tape, were being unloaded with a hurried efficiency that spoke of new beginnings. And at the heart of it all, a whirlwind of bright pink hair and infectious laughter, was Kimi Finster. "Homo, Tommy. Check out the size of this place!" Kimi exclaimed, her voice ringing with excitement as she bounced on the balls of her feet, surveying the cavernous living room. Sunlight streamed through the tall, arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was a far cry from the cozy, familiar confines of their previous homes. Tommy, ever the pragmatist, adjusted his iconic blue beanie. Kimi, it big. Lots of room to explore. His grip tightened on a small box labeled important stuff do not touch, which, of course, contained his favorite teddy bear, Mr. Grumbles. Their parents, Stu and Dee Dee Pickles, and Kyra and Lou Finster, were a flurry of activity, directing movers and signing papers. The air buzzed with the combined energy of two families merging under one roof, an exciting, if slightly overwhelming, prospect. For Tommy and Kimi, it was the ultimate adventure, the start of a new chapter in their already eventful lives. Kimi, with her boundless curiosity, was already halfway up the grand staircase, her pigtails bouncing. "His is like a castle, Tommy. Imagine all the secret passages we could find." Tommy, while appreciating Kimi's enthusiasm, felt a twinge of apprehension. The townhouse was undeniably grand, filled with an unfamiliar scent of old wood and polished brass. It was a far cry from the familiar comfort of their old houses, with their well-worn toys and painted walls. He was used to the predictable layout, the cozy corners where he and his friends hatched their grand schemes. This place felt vast. Be careful, Kimi," he called up, his voice a little strained. A lot of stairs. Their parents had decided to combine their households after a series of life events, a move that had been met with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. For Tommy, it meant sharing his space, his routines, with Kimi and her parents. For Kimi, it was a chance to finally have Tommy and his friends as constant companions, not just weekend visitors. As the living room began to fill with their belongings, a sense of order, or at least controlled chaos, started to emerge. Stu and Lou were busy assembling furniture, their voices a low murmur of engineering talk, while Dee Dee and Kyra were tackling the unpacking of kitchenware, their laughter punctuated by occasional sighs of relief. Kimi, meanwhile, had discovered the dining room, a long, elegant space with a magnificent chandelier. "Ami, look! This must be where we have fancy dinners. Maybe we'll have a butler," she declared, striking a regal pose. Tommy, who had been trying to secure Mr. Grumbles on top of a towering stack of books, sighed inwardly. "Don't think we getting a butler, Kimi." He preferred imaginary spaceship adventures to imaginary formal dining. The first few days were a flurry of exploration and adaptation. The townhouse had an attic, a dark, dusty space filled with forgotten treasures and the faint scent of mothballs. It became Tommy and Kimi's secret laboratory for their imagination. They found an old gramophone, a collection of vintage hats, and a dusty trunk that sparked their interest in pirate lore. The basement, while not as glamorous, offered its own brand of intrigue. It was a labyrinth of utility pipes and forgotten storage rooms, a perfect place for hide-and-seek that could last for hours. Kimi, with her fearless spirit, was always the first to venture into the darkest corners, while Tommy, ever the cautious leader, followed close behind, a flashlight in hand. Their parents, while busy settling in, made an effort to ensure their children felt comfortable. Dee Dee had painted a vibrant mural in Kimi's new room, a sprawling jungle scene that Kimi adored. Stu, ever the inventor, had rigged up a rudimentary pulley system in the attic, much to Tommy's delight. However, the sheer size of the townhouse also presented new challenges. The sheer number of rooms meant it was easier to get separated. Tommy, used to knowing exactly where everyone was, found himself calling out for Kimi more often. And Kimi, prone to bursts of independent exploration, could sometimes disappear into the vastness of their new home, prompting a chorus of anxious calls from their parents. One afternoon, a minor crisis occurred. During a particularly boisterous game of tag, Kimi, in her pursuit of Tommy, had darted into a newly decorated study and accidentally knocked over a tall, antique vase. It shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards of porcelain skittering across the polished floor. Silence descended. Kimi, her face pale, looked at the mess with wide, remorseful eyes. Tommy rushed to her side, his initial shock giving way to concern for his friend. Stu and Lou, hearing the commotion, appeared in the doorway. For a moment, the air crackled with unspoken tension. Dee Dee hurried in, her hand flying to her mouth. Kimi's lower lip trembled. Sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Stu knelt down, his expression gentle. "Okay, Kimi. Accidents happen." He surveyed the damage. Was an old vase anyway. "Nothing we can clean up." Lou, ever the pragmatist in these situations, pointed to a broom and dustpan. "Get this cleaned up, shall we?" As they worked together to sweep away the remains of the vase, a quiet understanding passed between the two families. This new townhouse, with its grand spaces and delicate furnishings, was also a place for learning, for making mistakes, and for growing together. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room, Tommy and Kimi sat side by side on the plush rug, playing with a new set of building blocks. The chandelier above them cast a warm, inviting glow. Kimi nudged Tommy with her shoulder. A pretty neat castle, huh, Tommy?" Tommy looked around the spacious room, at the boxes that were slowly transforming into furniture, at the warm light filtering through the windows. He thought about the attic, the basement, and the shattered vase. Kimi," he said, a small smile playing on his lips. Definitely a pretty neat castle." He picked up a red block and handed it to her. "And we can build anything we want in it." Kimi's eyes sparkled. Nothing," Tommy confirmed, the apprehension that had lingered since their arrival finally beginning to fade, replaced by the familiar thrill of adventure, now shared in a grander, more exciting space. The townhouse on Elm Street was no longer just a building. It was their new world, and they were ready to explore every inch of it, together.